besides the Cracker Barrel making the headlines, the other big controversy this week was President Trump saying that he's willing to open the door to allow 600,000 Chinese students in, or to give them visas to come and study in America. And a lot of his fiercest supporters were like, what? Because that's double the current amount that's currently in here.
And it's a 180 from what he was saying not too long ago, that there were always like foreign people, working as agents, basically.
Yeah, so basically the first time was ahead of his meeting with, they had a summit, right, with South Korea's president. And so ahead of that meeting, he had dropped something about this. He was like, we like the Chinese. And then he doubled down and he said, we're going to allow their students to come in. It's very important, 600,000 students. It's very important, but we're going to get along with China. And so everyone was like, what? And then Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick went on Fox's Ingraham on Monday and doubled down on that and was defending it on the monetary sense. Makes sense because he's Commerce Secretary. So he was saying, if we don't have these 600,000 Chinese students, 15% of U.S. universities would go under because, of course, international students don't get scholarships. They have to pay the full tuition. But then again,
hold on. But then what? China is subsidizing America's university system, which they are, but it's a little bit too blatant.
How much money actually comes from them, right? So in 2023, so just 2023, Chinese international students contributed upward of $14 billion to the American economy. So there is an argument for the money sense. But then at the same time, right, as you were mentioning, this is a huge reversal because if we remember in May, Secretary of State Marco Rubio was really doubling down on, going after Chinese students, investigating them, vetting them, making sure they're, not just allowed to go into the most sensitive fields and learn and stuff. So there was a lot of concern this week, especially from the Republican side, where they're like, wait, what about all of that? What about our sensitive technologies? Do we want to be teaching them quantum, medical, all of these different secrets? So you had some who were like, oh, because President Trump didn't clarify at the time, right? So a lot were like, oh, does he just mean we want them to go to like the humanities and stuff? Because that had been
gender studies.
There's a lot in art, actually, art school.
There are. I mean, I know that from my school days. And so the thing is, though, that we haven't had like clear clarification from the White House, but there was a White House spokesperson who clarified to Fox News, at least, saying that the 600,000 is a reference to a 2-year extension, saying that it's simply a continuation of existing policy because currently there's 270,000 Chinese
so
students.
Basically 300,000 a year is what they're saying.
So that's the current answer to why it's 600,000.
Is that like new visas or total that year? Like, is it the
total?
Total. Okay.
That's what they're saying. So they're saying it's a continuation, right? But then you have a bunch of different concerns because if we remember, China has a national intelligence law from 2017, and particularly the part that's cited is Article 7 of that, because it says all organizations and citizens must support, assist, and cooperate if the regime asks for anything, information, data. So like a company is held accountable, or if you're a student. And there are cases of students, they come in, they just want to study, they want to do well in their classes, but they do have family back home in China, and the regime can put pressure on their family to then get to the student to spy on something in the U.S. on behalf of the regime back home. So there are cases of that. So that's the concern, right? You can be like, maybe these are very good people. I've met, some of the Chinese students I went to school with. They believed in what America was, right? But then it's like...
And it gives them an opportunity to learn about things that you can't learn about in China,
yes.
right?
So you have all these different...
I'm sorry, by that I mean like what happened at Tiananmen Square in 1989, like they can actually get some real information.
So that was the argument back in the day. It was like you want to let these people in so that they can learn, their own country's history and also what a true system looks like, democracy, experience it firsthand, and then they'll bring that back home when they graduate, and then liberalize or democratize China down the road. So that was always the wish back in the day, and you still have people making that argument. But then you do have on the other side where, especially on the Republican side, you're often hearing concerns about national security. So actually in March, you had a Republican congressman who introduced the Stop CCP Visas Act, which would, stop visas going to, but so I think that's the main part that Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, was trying to emphasize was, the vetting was to make sure we wouldn't be giving student visas to children of Chinese Communist Party officials to let them study in the States, because a lot of these are behind some of the worst atrocities in terms of human rights abuses, right? So it's like, why are they being allowed to do that back home and then being able to give their children the best opportunities, because you had Xi Jinping's daughter study here, right? So it's like you have all these different cases where people are like, well, maybe we want to, because generally the U.S. is always like, we don't have anything against the Chinese people. It's the Chinese Communist Party.
Except that, like, that law that you mentioned should be an automatic disqualifier for the entire country, because it means for them to be lawful, for these students to follow the law, then if their country asks them to spy, they literally have to. So I think there's probably some subset of students who come over and they learn about, the true history of their country. Maybe that's why they want to come over, and they're like fully invested in life here, and that's why they came. There's going to be some subset. They're still vulnerable because, as you said, they have family back home that they could threaten. And then there's going to be some legit bad actors that are being sent over by the CCP specifically to do bad things. Maybe they can vet for those, but they're also
you can't vet for 100%
hiding
of that.
it.
Yeah, how would you
maybe
even?
hiding it anyway. But probably the bulk are all those people in the middle who, just interested in studying here, English, whatever, like the people you were talking about. But the fact that they can be turned into a spy at any moment, and that's following the law, like this, I don't see how you get around that.
They have the law that basically at least requires them to, if asked, right, if requested. But they actually have at most American universities, all the major ones, Harvard Medical School, like most of them, the CSSAs, Chinese Student and Scholar Associations. And according to their own website, so they're funded by the Chinese consulates, they're operated by the Chinese consulates, it's Chinese students and scholars, so it's faculty, professors, it's members of the United Front within like the overt spy branches of the CCP, all part of this. And they automatically, at least in some universities, by their own admission, automatically enroll every single Chinese student into them. So they have systems in place at American universities to monitor these kids, to watch what they're saying, which means, if they step out of line, they report them, they attack them, their families can get threatened, and they groom them as spies. Whether it's getting them to go directly into, government-funded research programs like the Pentagon or medical research programs, or they have them stay here and they plant them in businesses or jobs. Yeah. They can get spies.
Activate them later.
They can get spies into the U.S. government.
Yeah,
by grooming them through the employment process.
Here's something that I don't think is done, and wouldn't it be great if they did this for any foreign student coming over, maybe especially from a country like this. Maybe we don't need it from Australia or Canada, but there's a required course that they have to take in whatever, American civics or exceptionalism or whatever. At least you're because this could do two things. One, ensure that they're exposed to the ideas that you would like to at least hope to plant, a different worldview or something like that in them. Or two, CCP might be like, no way our students are going to take that course and not want to send them.
Well, the other big problem you have, though, is just like we're talking about this corporate rebranding, is the customer is always right. Who's the customer for the universities? If
China?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. If they can't can't survive without Chinese money, as the president just made clear, who controls the policies of the universities?
Okay, I'll mention this. Bad in my opinion. But if you're going to allow 600,000 Chinese students to come, you need that class. That's such a good idea.
Why wouldn't they do that? That would be fantastic.
All right. So, okay, Tiffany, there are some excellent recent examples of what some of these Chinese school kids might be up to if they're over here. For instance, was it a German Navy sailor or an American in Germany?
It was an American citizen.
Oh, what was he up to?
So there was an American citizen who was in Germany. He was there I think he was part of the Navy. And he offered up to, give foreign actors, in this case China, sensitive U.S. military information. So Germany found out, or German prosecutors, and they're like, not gonna happen. So they caught him and they're prosecuting him. And so he had offered to give them information, but he wasn't able to transfer any of the data before his arrest. But basically the authorities say that he repeatedly contacted Chinese officials in the summer of 2024 and offered to provide sensitive U.S. military information for Chinese intelligence. And then German prosecutors.
For ideological reasons, or just trying to make some side cash?
Money, or do you know if
There's not a lot. So right now there's not a lot of information on it. Like all the ones I've read, even the court documents don't have a lot. Even his name, you don't have much information. So I'm like hard to tell if it's like what his motivation, quote unquote, is. Because last week when we were talking about the
Get
Chinese,
15 grand for like
yes, that was
life
the
in
Chinese
prison.
national.
12 grand.
12 grand.
That was a Chinese national, right, who was in the Navy and then decided to send. He actually managed to send over a lot of sensitive information in that case, and all for a measly sum. So that was one case that's in the headlines right now. And then you have another one that's been making a lot more headlines, which is at MD Anderson. So this was a Chinese national who came over on a research scholar exchange visa. So he's not a student, but he was basically, it was like an exchange thing. So his research, he was studying research to go over it was a vaccine that would be against breast cancer. So it's like pretty sensitive medical information. And so his research at MD Anderson was being funded through the National Institutes of Health as well as the Department of Defense. But what he failed to disclose to America was that he was secretly working for a Chinese university at the same time. So he was getting funded by us, but also working on behalf of China. So what happened was he was just arrested and charged for stealing U.S. cancer research. So it's actually kind of interesting. There's a whole history here. So U.S. Customs and Border Protection caught him with the sensitive medical information as he was trying to board a flight to China back in July. And so what happened is prosecutors found out, officials found out that he had been uploading this research to his personal Google Drive while he was employed there, and then he was caught by the institution. So he deleted the files and was like, look, I deleted it, it's no longer there. But he had already also uploaded it to a Chinese server, the Baidu. So when he was trying to board this plane in July, Border Patrol was searching all of his, the things he had on him, and they found all of the research. So a bunch of unpublished research, trade secrets, and confidential files, including writings, drawings, and models that were stored on the Baidu account on his laptop as he was trying to board this plane. So he literally lied to law enforcement, hence
Why do you have to store it on why do you even need a laptop? Just put it on the cloud. I don't understand why.
No, I think that's
But
what
that's
happens,
what they
right?
found.
So
So
what you're
Baidu-
saying is the information already got transmitted.
Yes. So even though he proved to the university or the institution that he had deleted it, it was already, to your
Which
point,
is silly
on the
anyway,
Chinese
because
server.
once it was up there, anyone could have.
Yeah, well,
downloaded
they
it.
thought it was just on his, personal work computer's drive. But here's the thing. So, I mean, he could face up to 11 years if he's caught, but if maximum sentences. But at this MD
seem very
Anderson,
much.
they already had 3 cases of this. They previously fired 3 for basically the same thing back in 2019.
All Chinese?
Yeah, as far as I can see from the reporting so far.
But you know the
Well,
ridiculous thing?
send them some more. Send them 600,000 more.
Yeah, the ridiculous thing is that this is how the CCP works. This is just, it's not going to go away. The CCP even has a word for this. They call these people, they call it sparring partners, where you go and basically train with the guy you're competing with on how to beat him. They call it sparring partners. That's how they regard all of these research programs. And, the people stealing it, through observable ways, those are not even the official spies. The real ones, they don't have to. All they do is they come with their own laptop that already has a back door in it. So they don't need to transmit information, and it looks like someone else is spying on them, and that's all they have to do. There's no risk of getting caught. There's nothing. They do it all the time, and it's open. They get caught all the time doing it, and then we keep letting them do it.
But for the students that are coming in, along with what Cindy said, which is maybe having a mandatory class where you can learn about American values, it's also important to consider the perception that our leaders and just us as citizens make, and what Chinese foreign exchange students are experiencing and what their perception of America is on the ground level. Because we were talking earlier in the last segment about world leaders conversing on X and how people on one side and the other side are kind of going crazy. There's this whole woke thing. It just makes me think about what their perception of the United States might be like.
You know what the problem is?
Our internal disharmony is probably
we don't
confusing
influence them. They influence us.
Yeah.
And so the narrative on China, taught even at American military universities, is not our narrative, it's China's narrative.
Mm-hmm.
They actually teach the CCP narrative on history and the century of humiliation at all of our universities, including military training facilities for our military officers.
But is that the de facto education, or is that
It's the basis. Most, even American-trained officers
I
will
guess
have
what
been
I'm saying is
educated
like
on that.
if I was teaching a military class, I would want to teach that aspect too, because it's what the CCP is teaching, but you label it as such, and then you teach another angle, right?
They don't do that.
But they don't do that. They only teach one.
The official narrative is the CCP's narrative.
Fascinating.
And we let them do that across the board, basically.
All right, I know exactly what you're thinking. That was a great clip you just watched. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to follow and also check out either these videos or maybe they're on this side. I don't know which side they're on, but we set it up. So these are the videos that YouTube is suggesting to you as the best ones that you'll probably like the most. So check them out, this side,